Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the number one most valuable real estate community in existence. Today we got a very special podcast, very special guest coming to join us today, Mr. Noah Ammasi, the land legend. Noah, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, John?
Doing fantastic, feeling fantastic. I appreciate you hopping on the live. We're going to get everybody going here in a second. Talk to me, man. Who is Noah Ammasi? How did we get here today?
So, as some people may know, I do land. I really like land. It's really random how I got started. I was watching some random TikTok video. It was just saying that, hey, a lot of people are wholesaling homes or investing in homes. A very underlooked niche is land. And when I saw that video, I was doing something completely different. I was doing solar sales, door to door, signing people up on loans, and it wasn't going so good that year in California, which was about a year and a half ago. And so, I don't know, that idea of just getting into land just kind of stuck with me. And for months after that, after I saw that video, I just started talking to real estate agents, construction workers, GCs, city planning departments, just trying to gain some insight on, what it is about land that makes it valuable, what makes it developable, what makes it buildable, and things like that. And it kind of just went in a direction I never thought it would, honestly.
So you
And
heard
yeah.
about land investing. It interests you. You started to dig a little bit deeper. Where did you originally go? How did you find out about land investing?
Yeah, so on TikTok, it was this guy named Bad Dog. Maybe people who do land have also watched a couple of his videos. He's really heavy into land flipping, sending out mail, SMS blasts, things like that. And so it was just really that video that kind of planted the seed in my head. And yeah.
And so you just immediately started taking action, or how long did it take you to, hear about land investing, hear about making money in real estate, and then actually start doing something about it?
Yeah, so honestly, I started pretty immediately after I saw that video. And obviously, whenever people start something, they want to go somewhere familiar. And so I had chosen to like look into a market for land in a city that I had recently lived in when I was 19. And so that city is the city of Palmdale. It's in northern Los Angeles County. And yeah, just kind of went down a rabbit hole because I've told you about a couple of my first deals, zoning changes, general plan updates. That's kind of where it all started, was that city of Palmdale.
That city of Palmdale. I remember the first deal, that you brought to the chat. You were talking about that zone that changed, and you knew about it, and it seemed maybe like some of the property owners in that area didn't know, what was going on, and so that was like that edge. So I'd love to really, dive into you and learn more about, what fired you up about real estate. I know you heard about it and it sounded great, but like out of all the other stuff that you see on TikTok, drop shipping, e-com, crypto, why did real estate fire you up? Why were you like, okay, yeah, I can see myself doing that? And then how is it that you went from, yeah, I could see myself doing that to actually doing it and doing it at a level where it's like you're making moves, man. Like you're really doing stuff.
Mhm. Well, the thing about land, how I invest in it, is I really love the research aspect. And I love just being able to find out information that most people would never work for, or most people would never take the time to read through. And a lot of it is pretty interesting to me. And so it doesn't even feel like a job or anything. It just feels like kind of like a treasure hunt. And it feels so exciting because you never know when you might stumble upon gold. And there's a lot of gold to be found, especially in land.
That's
And
awesome.
so, yeah. And then, sorry, what was the other part you wanted me to say?
But it's just like
Or what
why
was it?
why land? Why?
Yeah. And so, my first couple deals, obviously, like most people, they didn't go as they planned. I'd gotten a piece of land under contract for like 70K. Market value was maybe around 80. I was going to try and wholesale it. But the land actually had a bunch of Joshua trees, which, if you live in California, you'll know it was a state protected tree. And so the cost to remove all these Joshua trees was pretty much the cost of the land. And
Mm.
obviously that was heartbreaking. But little things like that were those small things that might affect your land could affect it positively. So that's what I kind of thought about land. I was like, okay, if it didn't have these trees, then it would be worth more or worth what it was supposed to be. Or maybe if there were septic tanks added, it'd be worth more. If there were utilities, it'd be worth more, and just things like that. And so I just love trying to see what things does something have to give it value and what does it not have to give it less value.
So one thing I like about that is that something didn't go according to plan, right? And so that's that opportunity where you get the chance, to pivot and figure out, well, what am I going to do now? So what did you do? What ended up happening? You bought the lot. You found out it had the Joshua trees on it. What did you do? You just holding it to this day, or what is the play?
No, actually, I didn't end up purchasing that one. I think it was around $3,000 in EMD,
Okay.
and this is what I've experienced so far. I know people can say if you have a contract, you can get your EMD back, but the title companies that I was working with in California, these sellers, I'd been in such a long due diligence period with them, and my EMD didn't go hard yet. But when I wanted to back out of the contract, the title company asked both of us, "Hey, where should these funds go?" And I was like, "Well, I should get them back because it's in the contract. I had a due diligence period." And the title agent pretty much was like, both of you guys need to agree on where these funds can go. And so
Mm.
obviously, the sellers did not want to give me my funds back, even though their land had no value to it. And instead of getting stuck up on that, I just had to pick up and move to the next deal. And so I kind of lost that in escrow. And that happened twice so far for my first couple of deals. It's never happened again, but I've had some EMD get locked up, sadly.
That happens. But hey, it's better to lose, 3K on EMD versus spend, what were you looking to purchase the lot for?
It was 70K, but I was never thinking about purchasing it just because I didn't have that much cash. I was solely just thinking about wholesaling it.
Okay, so you were looking at assigning, the first couple of deals, but you ended up,
Yeah.
paying the entry fee, the learner's entry fee, the 3 grand. But you learned something from that. I'm sure that it stung, of course, but that that was a part of the process, because that's not where the story ended, right? From there, what did
Yeah.
you go on to do? How did you pivot? How did you take that? Because a lot of people, it could do one of two things. You could turn into somebody like Noah, become a beast now, really like dial in and do more. Or, you could be like, oh man, I got scammed, this isn't for me, and so the people that decide like, no, I'm going to really make this work, they have to have usually a moment where stuff just doesn't work. They have to take some type of L, right? But that L is not a loss, it's a learning experience, right? And the way that you look at it, what happened next? What happens from there?
Yeah. So I ended up taking another L. Funny you mentioned. Oh, the next deal I went to was this piece of land. It was zoned for high density residential. You could do 20 to 30 dwelling units per acre on the land, and it was like 2 point something acres. So you can have like 60 to 80 units built on this piece of land. So I get under contract for 200,000. I thought it was worth maybe like 250 and $5,000 EMD. Turns out this piece of land didn't have like an assigned water company to it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to annex into a water company nearby. And that process in this city was like a year long. And by the time I found that out, it was like 30 days into my 45 due diligence period. And I told the landowners that, and I was like, hey, this your land won't be buildable for a while, I think. I've never had to deal with this, so I think I'm just kind of, you know, back out of this deal. And same with the other sellers, they ended up keeping my EMD as well. So it was 5,000 EMD.
Wow.
Maybe like 8 months later, I ended up getting back like 2 grand. They said, "Look, we'll give you 2 grand. We just want to keep three." And the title company kept messaging me and emailing me saying, "Hey, we need to get rid of this EMD or else like we can keep it or something."
It's going to
And
the
so,
state.
or whatever they do with it. But that was another L that was given to me, and that was pretty disheartening because I didn't have that much money at that time. I had
Yeah.
enough to spend, towards experience that I would like to gain in that profession that I was trying to go into. But it was a lot to me at that moment. And that was my next
Absolutely,
L.
I'm sure. I'm sure, in that moment, you're like, oh my God, like, what am I doing wrong?
No,
But
literally. I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me again? It
But
was
now,
horrible.
you look back at it from where you've, taken yourself to be now, and you see, okay, wow, these were actually the building blocks, and in the moment, it's difficult to see how these struggles, how these adversities actually help us, right? Only can we reflect back and say, oh, wow, this was actually a blessing in disguise, once we continue to persist. So I like that.
Yeah.
So from there, you took two L's, you learned, how are you generating leads at the time? I know that you started off, you were looking to wholesale, and that's kind of what you were doing in the beginning, right? You were trying to wholesale before you built up your relationships and eventually started actually taking possession of these lots yourself. What happened next?
Mhm. And so the next one is when I ended up getting my first ever deal. And so what I was doing for like finding people, I guess, I was just kind of doing it manually. I just had PropStream downloaded, and then I was just manually pressing through parcels and then calling people using True People Search. Pretty, I mean, yeah, it was very slow. A lot of time was wasted, but a lot of
Yeah.
things were learned. And so this is when I get into the city of Palmdale and their general plan update. And so the very next piece of land that I get under contract is around 9.8 acres. It's a piece of land that was previously zoned industrial, light industrial, in the city of Palmdale. And per this general plan update, this industrial piece of land had changed to a zoning called mixed use 3. And in that city, it allowed 30 to 50 dwelling units per acre, which is 50 times 9.8 something. You could have done over 450 units worth of apartment buildings on top of this piece of land per
Wow.
its zoning. And since it was mixed use, you could also have commercial characteristics built onto the land as well. And so I remember reading this for the first time through the general plan documents and seeing that this piece of land had changed and seeing what it had changed from, and then seeing that it was in a trust with just some, normal people who own not much properties. They 100% wouldn't know that the value changed. And I was like, this is when my brain started cooking. I was like, there's no way this thing just changed that much value and nobody's called them. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
no way I'm going to call them and be the first person to call them on this piece of land and make an offer. And so I figured all that out. I True People searched them, manually. And I ended up getting contacts with the son of the owner who had owned the lot. And he was like, yeah, my dad is the owner of this lot. You know, I'll give him your contact info. And I was like, okay, perfect. And at this time, I'd already spent months calling people. A lot of people say, we'll give you a call back, or my dad will call you, my wife will call you, and you
Yeah.
never hear anything.
Yeah.
But literally within the next hour, this dude called me
Ooh.
and he was like, hey, I heard you spoke to my son. I heard you're interested in our piece of land in Palmdale. And I was like, yeah, I'm interested in purchasing it. I'd like a 90-day due diligence, like a 100-day close of escrow, and we'll offer 600,000 for the land. And while we're on the phone, he was like, okay, Noah, I appreciate you. Like, I've gotten low balls before for like 10K for my land or like 20K for my land. This is an offer that, it sounds really good. I'd like to verbally accept right now. What's the next step? And I was
Oh.
like, okay, that's great. I'll send you a purchase and sales agreement. It'll be 2 pages long. It's just going to pretty much state that I, Noah Ammasi, the buyer, am purchasing your land, the Houghton Trust, for X amount. And then we'll do a $5,000 EMD. And he was like, that sounds great. I was like, okay, perfect. I'll text you the second that's sent over. So I get off the phone and I'm like, I don't really know what the value of this land is, but I know it's probably worth a lot more than I just offered. And so I send that contract over to him, and it's him and his, I think, two siblings and a wife that were on top of it for them to sign. And
Mm-hmm.
so they sign this. I get that purchase and sales agreement, and I just start basically calling construction workers around the area that were building apartment buildings and just
Yeah.
trying to gain some more insight. And so a couple people that had purchased some high density lots recently within that city were like, yeah. If you get us some land, we'll pay like $15,000 a unit, or $10,000 a unit, or $8,000 a unit. And everything that they were saying was, because this piece of land that I got under contract technically was only at like $1,200 a unit that could be built on top of that property. And so in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this land worth? What did I just get under contract? And so I'm talking to people, and then I end up meeting this guy, and he didn't end up purchasing the land.
Okay. Hey, hold on a second, man. Hold on a second. The title company told this man, "Look, you were gonna make too much money on this deal. You gotta buy this. I mean, we're not gonna let you assign this." That is crazy, bro. That is crazy. Wow.
A few million for the land. He ended up just kind of ghosting me. And I had a backup offer at 875 grand. And so around month 4, I took it because nobody was coming with a better offer on the market. And I didn't even have it on the market for too long, maybe like a month and a half. And yeah, he was a 1031 exchange dude, so he closed in like 3 weeks, and that was
Wow.
my first ever deal in land. It
That is insane. That is insane.
was stressful,
This man,
very.
this man literally had his back against the wall. Nobody was coming to help this guy. He had a car that he had free and clear, and he risked the last thing that he had. I mean, this is what it takes. This is what makes somebody truly a revolutionary person. Is somebody that just has this conviction. They're just so certain that what they're doing is going to work out. They are willing to give whatever it takes. And trust me, it's going to take everything you have. You know, that's what it takes. So to hear
It
this
did.
story, man, it is absolutely inspiring. You know, I gotta ask, man. I want to know how many of us are fired up in the chat. I want to see some fire emojis. How many of us are paying attention right now to this story, to hear this testimony, to hear how this man risked his car, his way around, his last hope to get this high interest loan to take this opportunity. I mean, you risked it all, my
Or
man. This is absolutely incredible, man.
I
Truly.
honestly had believed in it so much, and
Wow.
after it, and in my head, it still made sense, but it still seems crazy if you've never done it and you don't know anybody who's done it. And I wasn't in any like real estate discords or group chats at the time, so I actually wasn't talking to anybody involved in real estate at all. I had no idea that there were discords out there, and so it was really just me believing in this and going this route. And I literally felt like I was crazy until the day that I got paid. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, I can do this again, and I could do it a lot easier and a lot better now that I just went through it once. And yeah,
And that's what kickstarted everything.
that's what kickstarted everything. And then right after that deal and I got paid, as some of you guys know, that's when I bought some oyster beds that I own in the state of Washington.
You want to talk about the oyster bed? You want to talk about the oyster story?
There's nothing to it yet. It's still building up into what it's supposed to be, but technically nothing's happened so far. I just own some land in the ocean that maybe some shellfish company will lease, hopefully sometime soon.
I mean, that's incredible, man. Just one deal. You know, they say it a lot. One deal can really change the trajectory of your life. How true do you believe that statement is?
It really changed my entire life. Now I'm obsessed with land and all the avenues that come along with it.
This is phenomenal, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Noah Ammasi. Noah, talk to me about, what's next for you. I know that you're obsessed with land. I know you're constantly coming in the chat. You've always got something new that you're talking about. I mean, just the other day you're looking at buying a mine, like literally a mine that has all these different minerals and that sort of thing. Like, it's incredible. What do you feel like is next? What is your grand vision for yourself, your business? What are you working towards?
Well, now I kind of just want to start investing in things more long term if I can get it for super cheap. Like if I could pick up something for a few $1,000 and maybe it's worth like a few thousand above that, I just want to start holding on to those things for whenever I think they'll be valued more in the future.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's incredible, man. So since this deal, what are you currently working on? Let's break some things down here. Let's talk about some tools that you're actively using. I know you mentioned PropStream. PropStream, I feel like is an essential. I mean, you got to have PropStream. If you don't already have PropStream, you got to go get signed up. You need PropStream for your business. Do you feel like you need PropStream for your business?
100%. It's the only software that I pay for, and this isn't a sponsored ad or anything, but I would pay a lot more money to use their services. I haven't used anything else. I haven't even looked at anything else because I'm satisfied with what I already have.
PropStream is amazing. It's an absolute essential. I really believe that. I stand on that. It's an absolute essential. Man, I mean, I'd love to open it up, to the chat. We've got a couple people that are asking questions. I'd love to answer some of these questions. So there's somebody in here that wants to know, how old are you, man? You're doing all this stuff. You look like a young guy. How old are you, doing all this stuff?
I'm 24 years old.
24 years old, ladies and gentlemen. That's it's incredible, man. It's truly incredible just how one deal can change everything.
It really snowballed into into something a lot bigger than what I thought it was going to be.
I imagine. Wow.
I
So
was looking at some of the.
yeah, let's open it up. I'd love to talk, in the chat. We'll get some people, that are asking some questions. But before we do that, I want to also ask, for the person that is in your position, right? This has to go out to that person. You got to understand the position that this man was in. His back was against the wall. He had already lost money. He already spent. Would you say you probably spent like a majority of your money? What were you doing before you were in real estate?
So I had like a team out with me in California. We all came from Utah and a few different other states
Yeah, you said you're doing
to
solar
go out.
sales, right?
We did solar sales. And again, there were a lot of laws that changed in the state of California that year that affected the solar market.
Uh
And
huh.
so I actually didn't make any money that year. I lost a lot of money just from bringing out a bunch of guys, renting a house and things like that, and taking care of a team
Uh
that
huh.
didn't really make any money because of these laws that had changed. Because I
Yep.
had done solar for 3 years in total, and the third year was just negative.
Hmm.
So that's what really forced me to look for something else. I kind of did day trading for like a month, but that wasn't anything solid. And then I did land.
Wow. So, I mean, you had a bad month, bad year in business. You know what I'm saying? You heard
Horrible,
about land,
horrible year.
horrible year. But hey, I want to really showcase this because this is the reality, not only in real estate, but in life. Things are going to happen. Nothing's going to go according to plan. You're going to have to go through this period where it feels like everything's falling apart for your life to fall into place. You know what I'm saying? And that's exactly
Mhm.
what happened. You had no other resource. You had to take a high interest rate loan on your car to make this possible, and you did it. See, that's the difference between people that want to approach these types of things casually. I feel like, and you tell me what you think, but I feel like you've got to have this level of conviction that is just 110% certain that whatever it is you are going to do, you have to go all in. And I feel like, that's not just something we say, but something we do, right? When you really are in that position where you have risked everything that you have, you've given everything to the game, and it still demands more of you, you've got to figure a way. And so that's such an inspiration, man. I really hope that this doesn't fly over anybody's head as to truly what it takes and what you've had to give to be in the position that you're in today.
It was a lot of sweat and tears, that's for sure.
I want to just dive into
And
that. I want you to tell me about the pressure that you were feeling in that moment. That
okay,
voice in the back of your head. I want you to remember that for a second. I want you to really take yourself mentally back to that moment where you were sitting there. You already lost money on some of these other deals. You hadn't had that proof of concept yet that this is a real thing, right? You knew that there were other people that were doing it, but you hadn't crossed the finish line just yet. And you'd already, spent money and lost money. And now you've got to really justify to yourself, hey, I'm going to actually take another risk. I'm going to take a loan out on my car and I'm going to take this deal one way or the other. Talk to me about what was going through your mind in that situation. What were you thinking? What were the people around you telling you? Did you consult with anybody? Did anybody tell you, hey, what you're doing is risky, like you really should reconsider? What was going on?
yeah, so I have one good friend who works for a real estate investing company out here. And while I was going through that, I was just pretty much telling him the deal that was given to me and that I was going to take it. And obviously, like a good friend, he advised not to do that because that was a lot of risk. And you're really thinking about that time. And when I did take out that loan and put my car up for collateral to even take the loan, it was a lot of anxiety. But I had so much belief in it that it surpassed that anxious feeling. And even if this investment firm had said no and didn't give me a chance, I wouldn't have stopped looking for another funder. I had already spent months looking for these people. I would have spent a couple more looking for a different one. There was nothing that was going to stop me because I believed in the idea so much. And even though I hadn't seen it into fruition yet, it just made so much sense in my head. And And yeah, but I was very, very anxious. Probably took a couple years of life from stress, but we're on the better side now.
Absolutely, man. And that's what matters at the end of the day. So just know that you've inspired me. I'm sure you're inspiring everybody else that's in this live right now. We got over 40 people joining us on the Discord. We got people watching the live stream on the YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, drop some fire in the chat if you are inspired by this man today. I mean, I'm inspired. I got to drop some fire in the chat. This is inspirational to me. So fast forward now, you've closed out this deal. You actually, instead of just assigning it, you actually figured out how to get the resources to take possession of the deal, to actually be in control, eliminate the seller from the equation. Moving forward, you're looking at other opportunities. What do you see yourself doing 5 years from now?
5 years from now. Honestly, when it comes to land, I want to spend the next little bit of time, maybe 5 to 10 years, just not exploiting, but getting as much as I can from it. And I want to retire young. I don't really want to work forever. I want to
Yes.
be sitting on a beach on 100 acres that I own, maybe in Costa Rica or something, and just surf. And so this is just the avenue to get there. And and yeah, I do love what I do, but I love surfing. I love the outdoors a little bit more. So
That's
yeah, that's
awesome.
where I'll be in 5 to 10 years.
That is incredible, my man. I'd love to open it up, for some questions. And trust me, I have no doubt, Noah, that you're going to make that happen. And I'd love, for the community in some way or another to be able to help you make that happen. So, right now, tell us a little bit about, what you're actively looking for. How is it that somebody could do a deal with you? I mean, what do they need to bring? Is it a deal in a specific location? Does it just have to be a discount? I'd like to talk about these things so that people actually understand what they need to find in order to be able to work with you.
Yeah, so I've actually bought deals off of wholesalers. It was a commercial lot up here in the state of Utah. And I mean, I'm honestly looking to own land in every single state. That's on a bucket list of mine for what I'm doing. If it's just at a very, very steep discount, and it's a very steep discount, like 80% off, I'll purchase it anywhere. If it's rural, if it could take a year and a half to sell on the market, if that discount is there, it could be anywhere, and I'll still purchase it.
Hmm.
Now, getting that discount, that's your job to do as the person wholesaling it. I will 100% buy it though, if you do get it at that. And and yeah, anywhere. Seriously.
Anywhere.
Maybe up to like maybe up to like 100K right now, just because I'm not super rich yet. But yeah,
He's working on it. He's working
anywhere.
on it.
I am working on it. So I own land in 5 states right now, out of 50.
Phenomenal. We got a question from Big Play J. How is it that you sell your deals?
Honestly, most of my deals I just list on the MLS since I'm the owner. Sometimes I have people who I know are interested in the area, and I reach out to them first off market. And yeah, but mostly just on the MLS. Just find a good agent in whatever state that you live in. And finding a good agent, it's actually a lot harder than I thought it would ever be. There's not too many great ones out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about financing then. I know that you said you took out a loan, on the last deal to get into owning that last property. And I feel like, that's kind
Mhm.
of the position that you want to be in, right? You want to take the seller out of the equation and then you just want to work with an agent and list the stuff on the MLS. But how would you go about, building relationships with lenders that would feel confident enough to want to spend money with you in acquiring these deals?
So I only got that after I did my first deal. I had partnered up with somebody else on another deal, and they had seen what I had done, and they'd actually reached out to a friend and said, "Hey, this kid's, always finding deals, and he's kind of looking for money, and I know you have money to invest. You guys should hop on a call." And this guy is actually my long-term lender now. We've done a couple deals together. We've already made money together, and so That's one way. Building credibility. I feel like it would be a lot harder to get a lender who's willing to invest in pretty, some would say risky investments if you don't have any credibility. And so maybe building up credibility first is the best way to ensure a good relationship with a lender.
Awesome. What would you say about your lifestyle, man? Since you've been able to start closing some of these deals, how has your lifestyle changed, from before real estate to after real estate?
Honestly, I haven't made crazy enough money yet for anything to even change. I just paid off my car again free and clear after that first deal, which that felt nice because that was the only debt that I really had to my name besides the loans, obviously. And I mean, I haven't bought anything really. I haven't bought another car. I haven't bought any watches, or bracelets, or necklaces, or jewelry. I definitely will. Nothing crazy, but maybe in the future. I just haven't had time to.
You're focused on these deals, man. That's what's most important.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever considered using a flat fee? Or are you mostly working with agents, to list these properties on the MLS?
Um, yeah, I only just work with agents. I just give them the 6% whatever rate it is for their commission.
Fantastic. So I know we got some questions that are coming up in the side chat, but I also want, for you to talk to that person that's now just getting started. What would you tell them if they're in your shoes before they've gotten that first deal? What is it that you'd say, for that person that really does want to take this opportunity serious and they want to be all in on real estate?
I would say we live in a very like open day and age. Information is everywhere. Any question that you have or any thoughts that you have, somebody's probably already thought it. Somebody's already probably answered it. So use the internet. Watch every single video there is to do about land, even for something like DocuSign. I honestly didn't know how to use DocuSign when I first just started doing this, so I had to watch like probably an hour worth of videos just to figure out just the little nuances of that software. But literally anything you can kind of figure out on the internet. And if you can't figure it out, you'll at least get some better clues to your answer, and then you can maybe figure it out yourself. And then you'll value the information a lot more.
Fantastic.
Google is your friend. Yeah, they really are.
So what are you doing, to market to properties right now? What are some of your marketing channels? How are you generating leads?
When I say I just go the old school route, I never have done any SMS blasts, mailing, or anything. I'm very specific with the type of land that I want. Again, I've targeted a lot of general plan updates, and so I'll just have like a proposed future land use map on one link, and then I'll just have prop stream on the other, and then I'll just zoom in on whatever parcels are expected to change within this general plan update, and then I'll just see who owns it, if it's an individual or a company, LLC, and then if they don't own too much property, then I'll give them a call and just try to make an offer price and what their land is valued at currently, not what it's expected to be once this thing once this thing updates and changes their zoning.
All right, so let's break that down a little bit, right? Because that's really like
Mhm.
the edge. So you're looking for these people, that currently have a specific zoned property, right? And the
Yeah.
real value is catching these people where the zoning changes to something that could be more valuable and offering them, what the value of their land previous to that change would be, right? Because the reality is, if they're not anticipating to do anything with it, I mean, usually they don't care, right? If they're open to selling, they just want to sell it and be done with it. Now,
Hmm.
where is it that we can find out like what cities are about to actually change? How do we see like these plans, for when zoning can get updated?
So it's definitely not a common occurrence. It's, I mean, the city of Palmdale, when I was looking at them, I don't think they had ever even gone through one at that time. And so maybe watch the news. I've definitely seen some news channels talk about it, like briefly. It's something that you'll never ever pay attention to if you're not looking for it, but it's everywhere in your mail, in the newspaper. Cities will mail out people all the time. Even if you aren't the landowner, they'll just say, hey, this city is currently going through a general plan update. 99% of people just toss that mail to the trash.
Mm.
Nobody ever takes a second glance. All these landowners, or I've bought their land from them after the zoning's changed, according to the cities that I've spoken to, they've all been notified through mail. And whether or not they read it is completely up to them. But most people would never, because that's such a random thing to happen. And it isn't really a mainstream occurrence. And it's not really, you know, there's just a lot of people don't do it. And if you're just an individual landowner who's owned this lot for decades, you would never think that, oh, my land is just changing zoning on Tuesday. You would never have that thought. And so just watch the news, maybe look out for some mail, talk to people, see if they think that the city's going through a general plan update. Because if they think so, then maybe they are, and then you can explore that route.
And that's the other thing too is like most people that are not really in real estate, they don't know what any of the zoning and that sort of stuff is or care to know, right? A lot of these people they're just sitting on vacant land and that's just what they know, and that's all they care to know is that it's just vacant land. Land's going to go up. You can't make more of it, but there's more to it than that, right? And so understanding that is what obviously gives us an edge. But how did you find out about the zoning change? I mean, did you get a piece of mail, or what was it that opened your eyes to, oh wow, this is an opportunity here?
Yeah. So when I was doing my first couple of deals, it was on one of the ones that I took an L on. The owners were like, "Yeah, it's zoned. Like you can build like four houses on it." And so I called that city's planning department, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just calling about APN number blah blah blah, parcel number this." And I was like, I just wanted to confirm that you could build. Again, I didn't know the terminology yet, so I was like, I just wanted to confirm that you can build four homes on this lot. And they're like, yeah, no, this lot changed in our general plan update. Now it's a high density residential lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what's that? They're like, now you could do 20 to 30 dwelling units on top of this property. And I was like, dwelling units as in, she was like, well, like apartment buildings or super tight homes, condos, whatever. And and that's kind of how I stumbled upon it. And I was like, wait, so you're telling me the zoning just changed? Like, how did that even happen? And they're like, yeah, well, it's a pretty long process. A general plan update doesn't just happen overnight. It takes years. There's city meetings, there's feedback from the community. It's a long process. And so, but this city of Palmdale had, I guess, done it pretty quietly because I didn't see too many people purchasing rezoned land from a lot of landowners. And and yeah, that's pretty much how I stumbled upon it, just from a lady telling me that they had done that. And then she provided me the documents that I could read through to see what zonings were added. It was long. It was a very long document, hundreds of pages, and read through it a few times just to actually understand it. And then it just like a light bulb went off in my head. And
And
yeah,
now you're looking at every county, trying to figure out, who zoning is about to change and when.
yeah. But I also like every other aspect of land too. That's just another avenue.
Talk to me about some of the other aspects.
I invest in a lot of tax deed auctions. And so maybe some people in here have already done that, but it's pretty much where somebody doesn't pay their property taxes. For land, it's 3 years in a row. For homes and buildings, it's 5 years in a row. And if you don't pay those, your property gets offered up on a tax deed auction. And the bidding only starts at what was owed on the taxes. That's it. It could be a $1 million home. It could be a $2 million piece of land, and they assessed it at 50 grand, and you're taxed $1,000 a year or something. And it will start at $3,000 or $4,000, regardless of the value of the property. Just whatever you owe on taxes, pretty much.
Wow.
And so I'm in a lot of that now.
And so how is it that somebody could do something similar? They know now about like tax auctions and that sort of stuff, but how is it that somebody could get involved?
I mean, again, Google is your friend. all these questions and thoughts that you have, somebody already has an answer for you, and it's just waiting somewhere on the internet for you to see it.
So just like really get acquainted with Google, start asking, these questions and the answers are out there.
I know, and I feel like a lot of people don't utilize the city enough. They're there to help you out. If you have any questions, and if you call somebody and they don't know, they're gonna transfer you to a department that does, or they'll just keep doing that until you actually get your answer. But sometimes, well, I'm sure a lot of people here have worked with cities. Sometimes they don't answer when you call them. Sometimes you leave a voicemail and they don't call you back for a week. Sometimes you send an email and they don't respond for months. So that's part of the game, is being patient. And yeah.
Well, I'd love to open it up. If anybody in the chat has some questions, please use this time. We got a little bit of time here. Raise your hand. Come and join us up on the stage. Introduce yourself and ask Noah, some questions. This is your opportunity to get in front of Noah and ask him these questions, that you could be asking on Google. We don't have too much time here, but, this is that opportunity. We got Gene. We can't hear you, Gene. I think you're muted. You got to unmute yourself. If anybody else has some questions, raise your hand. Take advantage of this opportunity. We're going to wait, for Gene to get himself together. And also, feel free to ask in the chat. We got a great question about comping. Here we go, Gene. You there? Unfortunately, we can't hear you, but you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you. So while Gene's still trying to figure that out, let's talk about comping. I know you said you like to use PropStream, to comp properties.
Yeah.
What is it specifically that you're looking for? Sometimes it's not as easy to just find, an exact comp. Do you ever look at like price per square foot or price per acre, in specific areas? What are some guidelines that people could follow?
Yeah, for what I've done, I've honestly just done a price per square foot for whatever piece of land was the exact same as the other, or very similar. And and yeah, I don't really use like Redfin or Zillow because if a general plan update did happen, a lot of these pieces of land that went through that rezoning process, they're being bought off market from large companies that already know and do this. And so those comps won't really ever show up on like a Redfin sold tab
Mm-hmm.
just because it was bought off market, which most of them will be, from what I've seen at least. And yeah.
We got La Buena. I guess you have a question. You got to press. There's a button that you can press to come up on the stage. What are some other issues that you've run into? What are some things that have happened besides, the losing EMD or maybe, finding out there's like a specific type of tree somewhere, that,
Mhm.
is going to prohibit you from building and that sort of thing. What are some other things, that you've run into and how have you been able to pivot?
I've actually ran into contaminated soil
Oh,
once pretty bad. And I didn't end up purchasing this lot, but it was horrible. I'm talking like the state had to step in and take care of this cleaning process. It was the Department of Ecology in the state of Washington in the city of Vancouver. So it was the Department of Ecology cleaning up this site that had just been absolutely contaminated from this, and it was horrible, like awful.
What did the process look like?
I mean, I didn't even end up buying the lot just because the process sounded like it was impossible to clean. It had infected miles like into the soil, and I think it's called like brown water or something. I have all the
Hmm.
documents in my just saved in my docs, but it had spread like miles underground, like affecting the water. And I think in Vancouver, it's the Columbia River that's nearby to this area, and it had gone into that stream, and so it was a horrible contamination. I had sent it to my soils guy, and he said it was the worst he had ever seen in his life.
Wow.
And yeah, and when the state was selling it, or the county was selling that in the tax deed auction, they didn't have that mentioned anywhere. There were no disclosures that whoever was buying this was gonna get insanely screwed. It was just here, buy this lot. They messed up on their taxes, and now you can own it. And that was pretty much it.
How did
Cost
you?
to clean it was millions.
Oh my gosh. How did you
What is
hear
wasn't even
about
worth.
REI Rev, man? How did you get into the community?
There's a couple of guys that I work with a little bit. Their names are Jonathan and Clark, and they had just kind of introduced me to Discord. I think I downloaded this thing when I was a kid, and then I've never used it since. And we had just downloaded it just to talk to each other and show each other deals. And then they ended up telling me that there were some Discords where I can join, where people also invest in real estate. They're young, ambitious. I was like, okay, I would love to join those groups now that I finally have somewhat experience. And that's kind of how I just ended up in quite a few chats now, just to kind of network.
That's awesome.
And yeah,
Besides PropStream, I know you said you just use PropStream. You don't use anything else.
I use like a lot of county and city websites, their GIS maps and their interactive maps. But besides that, PropStream's the only thing that I pay for. Everything else is just public viewer websites.
Fantastic.
Yes, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Fantastic. Wow, that took a minute. No, I just want to say I used to invest in land for 3 years and then
Mm.
moved on a little bit, but I'm extremely happy to hear about people talking about the business. It's one of the best kept secrets out there.
It
The
is.
ability to find them and flip them. And so I just want to say I'm extremely excited. Um, PropStream was also the one that I used primarily to essentially find my for my mailers and stuff. Um, and so just kudos. I'm around. I'm on this chat. I have been inside this server for probably a few months now, and I'm really enjoying the content that you put out there, John. And and so I'm always open to talk to people if they want to learn more about land from a different perspective and stuff. Hit me up.
Thank you,
Let's
man.
do it. I just added you.
All right,
Sounds
Noah.
good.
Well, I appreciate you, man, for coming on and chopping it up with me. I know we wanted to host a podcast for some time. You are truly a revolutionary, and grateful, to know you. So, ladies and gentlemen, definitely tap in if you haven't already with Noah. Make sure that you guys keep him in mind, especially when you come across any land deals.
Please do. I'm always down to take a look.
Now, Noah, before we go on ahead and sign off, I want to ask you to talk to your future self. All right? You're talking to future Noah right now. What is one
Mhm.
thing that you have to say to future you?
Uh, for right now to future me, it's that I got it, and I'll get there where I want to go. Just gonna take some time. Then I'm stoked to get there. And yeah, I'm excited to see what other crazy pieces I can acquire throughout real estate and land.
Ladies and
And just
gentlemen,
that I'm
give it
excited.
up. Noah Ammasi, the land legend. Make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm going to post it in the chat. It's at REI Revolution. Catch all the replays literally for free. You can come watch all the podcasts and get a chance to actually meet the revolutionary members that are in here. Noah is the latest. Mr. Noah is a real estate revolutionary.
We'll see. All right, thanks, Sean.
Absolutely. Take care, Noah. Take care, everybody. Guys,
you,
if you haven't already, please consider inviting somebody you think would benefit from being in proximity with us. Send them to reirev.com or our Discord. They can join on our Discord at discord.gg/reirev. Until next time, drop a comment on the video, drop a like, share, and we will catch you in the next one. Take care, everybody.